You're tuned into The Money Movement, your one stop for 100% Canadian financial management content. This isn't just another podcast. This is a movement. Here's your host, Graydon Racine.
Today, I am joined by a very, very special guest. I am speaking with Lori Darlington, Vice President of Small Business and Strategic Partnerships with RBC. Lori, you guys sent over this media release, and I think the underlying thing is entrepreneurism is still alive in Canada.
Absolutely. No, we got some really interesting findings out of the 2019 RBC Small Business Survey, and entrepreneurial momentum is strong in Canada.
There was some kind of surprising things, I'm not going to lie. The biggest thing is that from the survey, we noticed that baby boomers right now are really leading small business and specifically empty nesters. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, it's really interesting, and we had some of the same reactions as we looked at the results. Boomers, specifically those empty nesters in that demographic, are really leading the way, and it really challenges our traditional notion of sliding into retirement. There's some different reasons that we speculate. When you think about the empty nesters, for example, a lot of them did cite the thinking about starting their own business as the children left the home. So I think there's more time. There's potentially some additional disposable income. I think there's a variety of reasons that come into play there.
I like that you use the word sliding into retirement because normally that is the whole thing. You work all your life, then you slide in. But now we're seeing that they're like, no, okay, we don't just want to do the bare minimum. We want to have a really, really nice retirement. So do you think that these baby boomers are a little bit more well-equipped than, say, the millennials right now for dealing with business?
So it is interesting. In terms of some of the poll results that we saw, 49% of our boomers, they actually stated that they're thinking about starting a business for a couple of reasons. One, because they're looking to continue to use the rich experience that they've got from their career, and also to be able to supplement the retirement income. But I do think when you think about the career and you think about some of the changes in terms of how we think about a traditional career these days, it's no longer, join one employer and see the rest of your working days there. I think it's really exciting to see some of these boomers look to take some of those lifelong passion projects that they've got and bring them to life through a business.
Now, one thing that really stood out to me, actually, because I'm here in Alberta, but the fact that in Ontario, 62% of people in Ontario said that they've thought about starting a business. That's actually 5% higher than the national average. Why Ontario?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. It's, when you think about some of the different larger cities and whatnot, that could contribute to the different opportunities and where people start to open up look to open up their businesses. We saw some interesting trends, though, in terms of that entrepreneurial spirit really alive on the West Coast as well. And interestingly, Alberta really stood out. For the fifth year in a row, Albertans show the highest entrepreneurial spirit in the country, with 68% of people saying that they thought about starting a business. So that's more than 11 points higher than the national. That's
awesome. That's really cool. Now, just looking over all the statistics, I know it was a lot of information. One thing that really stood out to me, though, when you guys kind of highlighted this, saying that 42% of the small business owners are boomers, compared with 24% being millennials. And then if you look over actually at some of the study questions, when it came to business owners and aspiring entrepreneurs, there was a big trend with aspiring entrepreneurs are kind of taking their time researching, doing different things like that. Is that because maybe some of the millennial generations never really had that entrepreneurial teaching or weren't really surrounded by entrepreneurism compared to the baby boomers?
Yeah, you know what? I think that really does come into play in terms of some of the breadth and experience that some of those folks have. And it's a really interesting lesson, though, for folks to think about when you take a look at some of the research that showed those that have started their own business. They put a lot more credence into, how do you start connecting with those clients and whatnot, whereas some of those aspiring entrepreneurs, they tend to think about spending a lot more time on the research and figuring out the administration side of it. And the one thing to keep in mind, and the one thing we always recommend to those thinking about small businesses, is to recognize they don't have to do it on their own. There are so many tools and resources out there. Our RBC banking advisors are open to having conversations to help navigate and figure out where some of those tools are to be able to get themselves started.
We're going to take a short break to hear from our sponsors. The Money Movement is brought to you by Next Gen Wealth. Wealthy. At Next Gen Wealthy, they believe in helping grow the next generation of entrepreneurs. They offer business coaching, administrative and accounting support to help you get your business off of the ground. The uniquely designed packages are guaranteed to suit your needs. You can contact Next Gen Wealthy today at 587-8wealth or info@nextgenwealthy.com. See, and I love that you said that, because that's actually the whole reason behind this podcast that I've been doing. I found myself, I wanted to start a social media management business, just a sole proprietorship, and get out there. And the first go around, I'm not going to lie, I was kind of with the aspiring entrepreneurs here. I found I spent way too much time doing research, which I also found was very convoluted, trying to find clear research for this stuff, as well as the whole testing it out in the free time. And then I thought, oh, well, I should save up to pay for this and that and the other thing. When, you look at the current business owners, and they, by the looks of it, didn't mess around with it. They kind of just went really deep into it, and by looks of it, at least, played it by ear and kind of adapted to that. What is RBC really doing right now to make sure that those aspiring entrepreneurs are getting the resources that they need, and not just kind of wanting to start a business and then getting overwhelmed and throwing it to the side?
Absolutely. It's a great question. That is something that we've spent a lot of time, as we see our poll results every year, is really understanding what kind of support do our small business clients, those thinking about starting, really need. We spent a lot of time looking at things that are beyond banking. So how do we help reduce some of that administration and make sure it is an overwhelming experience that some small business clients go through? A couple of examples in terms of the ways that we help and support them. To get started with your business, we've got something called owner.ca. So a client can actually go on and owner.co, sorry. Clients can go on and they can register and incorporate their business within about 5 minutes. It's an online, easy tool. From there, you can very easily open your business banking account with RBC, again, online within minutes.
We're talking about the baby boomers using their knowledge and experience. When they're starting these new businesses, are they going into fields that they already have that experience, or are you guys seeing kind of new, different business ventures?
It's a bit of a combination, I think, in terms of what we see there. The interesting thing is I think they're able to use a lot of the skills and the expertise they've developed, whether it's the traditional business or not. But where we do see a lot of those entrepreneurs go in is those lifelong passion projects that they've kind of had on the side or always had a real keen interest in, and sometimes those are unrelated to what their more traditional career journey was related to.
Okay, and kind of sliding back over to the millennials, 70% of the millennials have thought about owning a business, and that was a huge increase. And then 53% of millennials, non-business owners, are currently participating in the side gig economy, which most of us millennials like to call a little side hustle. But why do you think that there's a 70% amount of millennials that want to start their own business, but we're not doing it yet?
You know what? I think there's a variety of reasons related to that, and I think it all comes back to kind of where they're at in their career, where they're at in their education, where they're at in terms of being able to really take that leap. But as the poll showed, it's really interesting to see that a lot of that demographic did spend more time thinking about and worrying about some of those things, such as the administration and how you set up some of those things, as opposed to recognizing they can just jump in and get started. So I think there's a couple of factors related to that.
Yeah, and 46% of the aspiring entrepreneurs said that they were really waiting to seek out a coach and mentor and business advisors. So should we be reaching out to you guys for this? Like, does RBC kind of have our backs if we're looking to start those businesses?
Absolutely. And you know what? It's never too soon to reach out and have that conversation with the RBC Business Banking Advisor. It's really interesting to put some thought into that business plan, but it's interesting how often people think, I'll only reach out to my bank when I actually need, credit or whatnot, but come to us early. We can have that conversation. We can help work through some of the business case assumptions that you've got, and really give you some early feedback and some advice in terms of some of those beyond banking experiences and support services that we talked about earlier.
Okay, now a huge thing when it comes to starting a business, obviously, and I think you guys mentioned this in here, was the state of the economy and things that go hand in hand with that. In your experience with your position, have the point that we're at right now, are we in a good spot to be starting businesses and kind of quitting that traditional 9-to-5 and really going out on your own?
You know what? From my perspective, there's never a perfect moment to start your own business. I think regardless of where the economy is at, where any variety of different factors are at any one point in time, there's no time like the present, right? Each economic cycle has its own unique challenges, but with that comes different business opportunities.
Yeah, for sure. There was another thing that actually, this one kind of, I was a little baffled by this. It was talking about the reason of starting a business and to leave something for your children. More millennials were interested in leaving something for their future children than the baby boomers were. Was that kind of a weird thing for you guys?
It's you know what? As I read through the poll results, that one really jumped out to me as well. A couple thoughts behind that. It's speculation, but when you think about the runway that the millennials have to really pull something together to be able to pass on to their children, maybe the boomers are more likely to have something already to pass on or whatnot. But yeah, it was an interesting difference between the demographics we saw there.
Is there anything else that I should know about that you kind of would have an opinion on or anything from this report?
You know what? Just one last thing that I'll share with you. Something that we found really interesting was looking at some of the reasons, just building on your questions around the millennials and whatnot. But it was really interesting to better understand what really motivates them and why they're thinking about starting their own business. 92% of them want to have control over their career. 89% of them want to do something that aligns to their personal values, and 85%, which I think is just great, they want to bring something new and exciting to the market. So I think it's really interesting when you better understand some of those drivers, and we think about the opportunity that our aspiring entrepreneurs, as well as our entrepreneurs today, have. It's the backbone of our economy.
That's funny because I always talk about the reason why. Like, why are you looking to start your own business? Why are you doing what you're doing? Because, in the perfect world, most of us are working 9 to 5 and kind of, as this poll suggests, working on something on the side in our free time. And it's a lot of work. So to have control over your career, to me, is a huge driver. And I guess that's easily shown here with 92% of millennials thinking that, having control over our own career is probably one of the most important things out there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an incredible number.
That's awesome. Well, thank you very much for your time today. I think we pretty much covered all of it.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Graydon.
Yeah, I look forward to getting more releases from you guys, and hopefully we'll be talking soon.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for reaching out.
For sure. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, you heard it. According to RBC, entrepreneurialism is alive and well here in Canada. So what's your excuse? Why haven't you started yet? Why is that side hustle still just on paper? Get it done.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of The Money Movement, brought to you by Next Gen Wealthy. Be sure to follow us on all your social media platforms and subscribe to us wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Remember, this isn't just a podcast, this is a movement.